Hi, welcome to another part of our Red Hat JBoss Fuse Home Loan Quick Start demo. And this is the fifth part of the demo. In the series of the Home Loan Quick Start demo, we're trying to take you through to build a Camel application from scratch. And from the previous demo, I have taken you through building a home loan housing appraisal integration system. So it's actually integrating between a vendor that is trying to give you house and customer informations. And with this informations, our integration system will try to integrate with the Google App Engine. And based on informations that we have taken from the Google App Engine, we will do the actual appraisal, and then we store the housing and the customer information into our database. So that was what's done. And in this part of the home loan demo, we're trying to do is we're going to expose it a web services endpoint, and it is going to be a Restful Web Services endpoint. And so whenever customers comes in or vendor comes in, they were asking about the appraisal results. This is what we give them. So they will have access to our URL. Then we're going to give our output and the details of the output in JSON content. So this is what we do. This is what we're doing in this part 5 of the demo. And here's how we do it. I'm going to start by creating a Fuse project. This is going to be an independent service because this is a RESTful web services. So I would like to have the freedom of scaling it up and down in a more flexible way. So having it in a independent project profile will be much more easier. And same as usual, I'm creating it with the blueprint archetype. And so with the blueprint archetype, we'll have a simple route and simple Java bin. So I'm going to clear this simple code and routes as well to have a blank canvas. So now I can start coding. So first thing first, how do I get the information out? So first of all, I will need access to the database. So I'm setting the database configurations into my Camel route. And then what I will do is I'm going to start up a Camel route with a direct endpoint. The direct endpoint gives you asynchronous services, asynchronous way of calling a Camel route. And so now after I have this endpoint, I can start do my actual integration with the database. So now because I need because I need to access the database, I probably need a SQL query. And as you know, I don't like putting SQL queries in my Camel routes. So I am actually placing my my queries in the property file, and then calling the property file name within my SQL components or my SQL endpoint in my route. So basically what it does is if you enter this route, it's going to call this, it's going to execute this SQL queries and return the content and return the SQL contents and return it back to whatever who's calling it. So how about my endpoint? Now what I'm doing is I'm actually creating a RESTful services. And before Fuse 6.2, there are two ways you could actually create web services. First is Java first. So we have to have a Java bin with the RESTful endpoints, with RESTful annotations and endpoints, and or we could have a WSDL, and we could use Maven plugins to generate all the different classes that we need for web services. But in current version of Fuse 6.2, we can now actually define our Camel endpoints with a XML or a Java DSL. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually set up a RESTful services with the context path of summary services, and then I can add the URL of and I can also add the parameters that it needs to pass into my services. So now I'm actually creating a summary services endpoint with a URL of national ID and with maybe a client ID, much better name for my endpoint. So it needs to provide some kind of client ID, And then what happens is, so I need to give it a place to go. So once I have established my endpoint, I need a route that's going to process and continue on and do my actual work. So here I'm actually retrieving the data from the customer data from the database. So I'm actually calling the direct customer summary routes that I have just created. So now you can see it's really easy to configure. It's all about define the services and then call the routes to it. So I'm just because I'm having because I'm passing in a parameter, so I think it'll be a good idea to log the parameters. So here I'm just using a log to log it, and the way the parameter will be showing in your Camel route, it will be within your in your header value. So if you call header and with dot your parameter name, it's going to display, or it's going to show in your Camel route as well. And in the current versions of Fuse, we can now use the simple expression language in the SQL property file as well. So now I'm just using the SQL property file, and it should just pass in the client ID to query my content. So after that, I have established my RESTful endpoint. I need to assign some kind of a configuration or a REST configuration that is going to do the extra job. So it could be something like a Jetty endpoint, or it could be go through a Servlet or a Restlet. So any kind of things that is available in Camel that you can use. So here I'm just going to use Servlet because I want to make sure that it is scalable. So here I'm just trying to use the Camel endpoint here. So those are the settings that you need to use the servlet inside inside Camel. So here I'm just injecting my HTTP servers, and I'm just allowing the Camel servlet to be listened to, so they can pick up my servlet my summary services as well. And here I'm just giving it a context path for my servlet. And then lastly, it's about the return type of my content. So it's like it's just like assigning some kind of content type in your header, so that the recipient knows what sort of data they're going to receive, and Camel will know what sort of data that we're exporting this content into. So here I'm exporting my content into JSON. So the content, the result set I have received from my database, I'm going to turn them into a JSON format file. And just to make it pretty, just to make it easier to display, I'm just adding a configuration that allowing the JSON content to be displayed in a more readable format. So it's called Pretty Print. Just making sure it's easier to read. So now I'm just saving this. Yep. Just making sure that everything is all right. Yep. Now, and so because I want to do a local Camel instance. I want to test it with a local running Camel instance. So here I need to add some of the dependencies that I need for this particular project. Things like my appraised web to start up my servlets, and also because I'm accessing the database, I also need the JDBC driver. Those dependencies, the Camel tooling is not going to do it for you, so you have to do it manually. And also because we're exporting our content into JSON files, so we probably need the JSON library as well. And so that's it. I'll see you in the next video and see how everything is actually up and running.